Defensive head coaches in the AFC East, which doesn't belong and why? Sean McDermott of the Bills, Brian Flores of the Dolphins, or Robert Saleh of the Jets?
Well, I mean, obviously I'm going to go with Robert Saleh here as of right now because it's his first time as a head coach, and he's unproven. I mean, Brian Flores is at least proven right now that, hey, he's a pretty damn good head coach. They went 10-6 as a rebuilding football team. McDermott's been in the running for coach of the year and could have been that last year. So I'll go with Saleh there right now, who's unproven as a head coach.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Flores in a positive way. He's got the Belichick imprint. And I don't want to take anything away from the other two guys. I just see the potential for true greatness in Brian Flores, like all-time greatness.
Yeah.
I see it. And we've only had 2 seasons of exposure. But the way he carries himself, the way he interacts with players. Remember that moment in that Bengals-Dolphins game when the Bengals player kept plowing into Jakeem Grant and Brian Flores was ready to go out there and kick the crap out of somebody? You know, remember that?
Mike, I wouldn't mess with him. You couldn't pay me to mess with him. You couldn't. I'll tell you a story. He's running the scout team defense while I'm in New England. Now, I'm not even out on the practice field. I'm noticing this on film, all right, because I have to, like, put the plays into the system so when people watch the practice film, the plays jump out on the screen so they go, okay, this is this play, blah, blah, blah. There was, like, a moment where they're holding up practice and the center and the offensive line kind of want to go, but, like, he doesn't have his scout team defense organized quite yet. So he's kind of put his foot on the ball to basically say, like, hey, hold on a second here. And the center keeps moving the ball, and he keeps moving it back, and keeps moving the ball, and keeps moving it back. And I'm telling you, they kind of got into it. Not like punches, but got into it. And, I mean, it's a stalemate. I wouldn't mess with him with anything. He'd kick the crap out of just about every coach in football except for maybe Mike Vrabel, and I still think that'd be a good one. You know, hometown of Mike Tyson, don't mess with him.
There's plenty of coaches like that, but that's just one piece of it. There's just something. Yes, I know. There's a spark. There's something there that I think is going to put him over the passage of time on the short list of all-time great coaches.
I hope
that's
right.
A high bar. He's got a lot of work to do to prove me right, and I hope I live long enough to see it. All right, Patriots starter potentially returning from opt-out, which doesn't belong and why? Right tackle Marcus Cannon, linebacker Dante Hightower, safety Patrick Chung, which doesn't belong and why?
All right, well, they need linebacker help. Hightower is so versatile, so to me, he belongs. Marcus Cannon, you infuse him back into that offensive line, and I go, that might be the best offensive line in football in a lot of ways, especially run blocking. I think the one I'll go with is Patrick Chung. I could see him at this point of his career kind of being on the outside looking in because also as awesome and the legend he's been, I mean, they got secondary guys, you know, growing on trees there in New England, and they have a lot of safeties on their roster too. So I'll say he's the guy that could be the odd man out here.
And I'm going to say Hightower doesn't belong because he's the guy who infuses leadership back into the team the moment he steps foot into the locker room. And he'll be able to explain, you know, to the extent that any of the teammates need an explanation as to why he opted out. Based on the information that was available in August, they made the decisions they had to make, even though it ultimately worked out and it wasn't nearly as bad for the NFL as we thought it was going to be. They made the decisions they had to make. He brings leadership that is desperately needed on the defensive side of the ball. He's the guy they need back more than the other two, so he stands out for me. Patriots offensive free agents, which doesn't belong and why? Running back James White, guard Joe Thuney, and center David Andrews.
Well, you know, I guess this is another tough one. These are good ones by Pete. I think the one I'm going to go with is James White. Joe Thuney, of course, might get franchise tag second year in a row. I don't know where that's going to go. He's one of the best run blocking guards in all of football, and of course we know that's the strength of their team running the football. They need him. Andrews is a good center, not a great center, a good one. You know, the running back, James White, he's a third down specialist type guy. I always feel like they find those guys. They know where to find them. So I think that's the one that doesn't belong to me.
Well, and look, the problem with tagging Thuney again, you're talking about a 20% increase over the tag amount from last year.
Yeah, so what's that going to go to?
They can do it. I got to see what he made last year, but it's got to be around 15, 16 million. They've got the cap space. But even the teams with cap space, just because you have a lot of cap space, that doesn't mean you fritter it away well, let's go ahead and be drunken soldiers with our or drunken sailors or drunken soldiers. Both get drunk.
Yeah,
with our cap money. With our cap money, we still want to be careful with it and make it go as far as it can in this climate where you can go out and get a lot of players. $17.7 million is what they would be paying an interior offensive lineman on a 1-year contract with no guarantee that next year it's quarterback money for the third franchise tag. It's either a 44% bump or the quarterback tag. So I don't think that is going to be a long-term relationship unless they get a long-term deal done sooner rather than later.
Sorry, and I was just going to say, and to your point, which you make a very good point, is like, a guy like Marcus Cannon, who we just talked about in there, that's going to give them a little more flexibility too, on that offense. Oh, he's back. Okay, maybe we're not as desperate to keep one of those two. I would think they do everything they can to get a long-term deal done with Joe Thuney, but you're right. That's pretty expensive 1-year type of thing. I don't know if I see New England doing that or not.
One more real quickly. Bills free agent starters: guard John Feliciano, right tackle Darrell Williams, linebacker Matt Milano, which doesn't belong in why.
Gosh. They all three are pretty good football players. I'll go with Matt Milano here. Again, I really like Matt Milano, the football player. I guess where I look at it is, what kind of money is he going to get on the free agent market? He's a really good football player he's an undersized middle linebacker who's been banged up a little bit. That's scary. And they got a guy like Tremaine Edmonds, who's we know is a top 15 pick or whatever, that they're going to have to pay him at some point too. So I think that it might be hard for them to keep Matt Milano.
I think it's more important to keep your offensive line in place. You can't, especially, and there was a time where not a lot of value was placed on interior offensive linemen. It's critical to have good interior offensive linemen, so they're not blasting through the middle and coming after Josh Allen. Yeah. I think when you have that product, that talent, that quarterback in Josh Allen, you prioritize his blockers. That's why Milano doesn't belong, because I think it's imperative to ensure that they've got 5 guys, no weak spots, in a position to protect Josh Allen as best as they possibly can.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.